Hey Gina, how are you? How's it going?
Hey, good. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. How's the weather in New York today?
I haven't been outside yet, but it looks really nice. It's sunny at least. It's been like rainy and gross for a few days, but at least it's sunny today.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm like, I haven't left the house in 2 days. Since I got back in town from this conference, I've just been working, and Fridays are just my call days. So it's just nonstop.
Yeah, I feel that. Friday's like sweatpants and phone calls. That's
How's everything going for you guys right now with work?
everything's good. We just did our rebrand like last week. It feels like it's been weeks at this point, but we just launched the rebrand last week. So it's been very busy, but good.
Yeah, I noticed that. What like got you guys to do the rebrand from Retection to Stay?
So when we first like kind of set out to build Retextion, I think like we were like, oh, there'll be like this text component to it, and like you'll be able to manage and like the thing that you think you're building before you build it is never like what you end up
For sure.
building.
Yeah,
And I think that was it. And the name actually came from like I think like pre-COVID, I was like, should we build an SMS app? Like, should we do this? So we had this like name, and then we ended up not building anything like for that. And then we were sitting on it, and we knew we wanted to build a subscription. I was like, oh, it kind of makes sense. Like, we'll use this name. And the more that it kind of came to market, I realized how much everyone hated it. And people like investors, like customers, they'd be like, this name is like I don't. How do I pronounce it? Like nobody ever knew what they were saying, and I was like, oh, like maybe that's like a fun thing, like it's like kitschy, like no one knows how to say it. It was not. And it just like wasn't super sticky. And we went back and forth on so many different names. And finally we settled on Stay, like actually a couple of months ago and bought the domain. Like we just kind of been planning on when we would launch it.
for sure.
But yeah.
I love it. I think it works. I think like at the crux of the platform, trying to get people to stay, so it works.
It, yeah, we looked at so many different names. We did like all the exercises. We're like looking at different types of flowers and like Greek goddesses and like this word in Latin, like all these different exercises of names. And finally, I was sitting there. I was like, what if we just called it stay? Like we were looking at like translation words for stay, and I was like, what if it was just stay?
Thanks for coming on today. I'm really excited to get to connect and learn a little bit more about like you and your background and like all the amazing things you've been doing over the last couple of years. But to really tie it back, like let's chat about like how did you get started in marketing and advertising and e-commerce?
Yeah, by mistake. So I think like
It's always the best way, right?
yeah, yeah. So to go like all the way back to when I was in college, I was working for Red Bull. I like got my start as like a Red Bull girl. Like I was one of the girls in the backpacks and the Mini Coopers. And I had worked like that job. I absolutely loved it. And then I became a student brand manager for them. And then I was coming up like ready to graduate. My boss was like, do you like think you want to do this full time? Like this could be a role for you. And I was like, I don't think I want to work in marketing actually. Which is hilarious now given the trajectory of my career. But so I turned it down and I left. I worked in sales for a little bit. That was not for me. And then I was working in event management at this ski resort, and I was running their events. It's called Mountain Creek Action Park. And I was running all of their events there. And I was doing that for about a year, and I kind of like loved it. Like I learned so much just like about like so
Yeah.
much can go like wrong during an event that like the stress levels and all that stuff, like you just learn a lot. So it was really fun for me. But about a year into that, they had hired somebody new to do the digital marketing, and then like slowly, like people stopped coming to the events because like there was
Yeah.
no emails going out. And I was like, well, I went to school for industrial design. Like I can do emails. And then like the emails weren't getting built. And I was like,
Yeah.
itemized, like I know
That's
HTML,
epic.
I can build emails. And then it like turned into like I
Yeah.
can own the content calendar. And then I ended up like running all of the like the email calendar for this entire resort and like really liking that. And that was kind of the start of digital marketing for me.
That's awesome. You know, it's funny. I actually got my start, like my past life. I I was an event producer. I started working a production crew when I was in college at like 18, 19 years old. So I know the grind of the event space, and I never want to go back there.
How many like 10 by 10 pop-up tents have you carried?
I More than that, how many times have I had an accident because I was so overworked? One time I literally drove I worked for a staging and productions company in LA, and I had worked for like 35 days straight, and like a few of those days were like 18-hour load-ins throughout the whole night, like nonstop. And I like backed into I was like
Yep.
unloading staging decks off the back of a flatbed and like backed into a parked car. Another time, I like, this is when I was an event producer years later, I like drove away from a gas station with the pump still in. Another time, I
No.
like get pulled over. This actually happened multiple times. I got pulled over without having my headlights on. I just wasn't thinking. And the last time, I crashed my car in the middle of the night because I fell asleep at the wheel. So that's when I realized
No.
and I'm not someone that I'm fully aware of my situation. I was just way overworked in that space. It was just overworked me to the bone. And the highs are high, the lows are low, the work's never stable. And that's how I got into digital space.
Yeah. I think the worst part is like, so like when you finally are done working, you want to enjoy the, like you want to be able to go to
Yeah,
the party that you just spent so much planning and all the prep and everything, but that's like your time to sleep. But you're like, but I
I
spent
know.
so much like work doing this, like I want to be at this thing. And like, but that like you needed to be asleep during that time. Yeah, that was always like such a,
I had event PTSD for a solid 4 or 5 years after I transitioned, where I just couldn't enjoy an event. I was like, I'd go to an event, I'd be like, well, what are the staff wearing? What's the rigging structure look like up there? I don't know about this truss structure and those lights and this wind. And I'm here to go to a party, you know?
yeah.
So I hear you on that. Yeah, cool. So you were working at this resort. Where was this resort located?
So it was in New Jersey. If you have been so if you've ever watched the documentary Action Park or Class Action Park, I think it's
Yeah.
called, on HBO, it's incredible. You would probably watch it and be like, "There's no way that any of this is true." I swear it was all true. You have to watch it.
I've got to take a look at it. All right, you've spun my interest.
Like again, like it's a doc about like obviously like what well before I worked there. I think it takes place like
Yeah,
in the 80s. I was working there like 2015 ish, 2014. But just this type of stuff that went on, like, and it was so an action park, or a water park, a snow like ski mountain. They had weddings going on. They have golfing, mountain biking, like all of these different things. So like, like the events just would always change. Like I was throwing like events. I'll never forget the first event. Like I'm standing there and somebody comes up to me and they're like, "Hey, like kids aren't wearing helmets." Like it was a snowboard event, and I was like, so, and they're like, the insurance company is here, like everyone has to be wearing a helmet. And I like had to run around and get helmets on all these kids. Like imagine like me 22 years old like trying to like wrangle these like 12-year-old children, like make them buckle helmets on. It was like stuff like that.
and you're like, "Why didn't someone up above tell me that we needed helmets?" Yeah.
They were like, "Where's the COI?" And I was like, "What is a COI?" Like yeah. So wasn't a lot of guidance. I was kind of just running these events, making it happen.
That's cool.
I learned a lot.
Do you ski or snowboard?
I do. I grew up. I until I was like 21 years old, I thought I was just going to be a pro snowboarder. So I grew up competing all the time.
That was me too. I like grew
Really?
up doing USASA
Yes.
competition in the 6th, 7th, 8th, ninth grade.
What? So okay, but you were you on the West Coast?
I grew up in LA, so I grew up doing them in Big Bear, Mammoth, Mountain High, like all the local mountains. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, same. And then I eventually started doing a lot more like street stuff and just rail jams, and then like filming and all of that.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was literally my high school was, and I don't even know how my parents let my friends and like how our parents let us, but we would just go out, we'd get hotel rooms, like Motel 6, pack 6 of us into a room. We'd be filming like in Mammoth, like on a Friday, and just like cutting these reels, thinking we're gonna go pro.
Same.
Like,
Same.
yeah.
Yeah.
Then you get hurt enough and you're just like, why do I don't even like going in the park anymore. Like, and I actually transitioned back to I still have my snowboard stuff, but I love powder skiing. Like
Hmm.
it's just my thing. I love it. And I just got so tired of the park because I'm like, I'm just pushing myself to hurt myself.
Yeah. I've definitely totally plateaued. Like we're not learning any new tricks at this age, but
Yeah. You're just trying to keep up what you had. Yeah, for sure.
right, right. Yeah, there's like I do love like a good sunny like park lap day, but yeah, I just did a trip with my co-founder, and we went cat skiing and heli skiing out in Utah, and it was like right after they had gotten so much snow. They're having like record snowfall out there this year.
I know it's been an epic year. Just the whole West has been on fire. It's been great.
Yeah, so it was so good. It was like so nice to kind of get out there and get some just like good backcountry days in.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
So you were at this resort at this and you did this. So what happened next?
Yeah, so I'm like doing like all the email stuff. Like I'm running their like full
Yeah.
like content calendar, their email. The resort's gearing up for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, so they need to like restructure some debt. They bring in these two consultants. Consultants come in, like obviously we didn't know at the time, but they're coming in to basically like figure out who's efficient, who's inefficient, and do like massive layoffs. So they're there for maybe like
Like a corporate cleanse almost, right? Yeah.
exactly. So they're there for like maybe like 3-4 weeks. And I'm on a marketing team of 12, and they fire my 11 coworkers. And I'm like, oh. And they're like, so surprise, you don't work here anymore. You're going to come work for us. You're going to stay on this account and you're going to do what you do here for a bunch of other accounts.
Wow. So they were like I'm assuming like a consulting firm,
Yeah.
right? And then they essentially said, we want you to work for us and you're going to do this for this place, the team of 12, now just you, and we're going to give you some additional work, right?
So, yeah, no, but they
Yeah.
also like brought in additional, like they were like, they plugged their marketing team in.
Okay, cool. That's great. They had a whole team. Yeah, yeah, that you were working with, right?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They weren't
Yeah.
like, "Hey, Gina, you now do the work
That
of
was
12
fun.
people plus work
Yeah.
for other brands." It wasn't that bad. So it was just like email work they wanted me to keep on doing. So I did that. I worked with them for like a year, and then I was just kind of like, I really like want to go back in house. Like I just didn't like love one of the partners of the firm, and one of the other guys was like, I want to start like an agency. You should start it with me. Email's dead. Like you should learn paid ads. And I was like, I'm too deep in. Like
Yeah.
I'm a retention girl at this point. Like we're sticking with retention marketing. So I went and worked for an app called Zeal, which is like massage on demand. And that was like the first time I got to work with like a full product team, and I like replatformed them, and I got to work with product and like kind of like understand like how to set up all these different user flows. Like when you work within the like e-commerce and you're working with like Shopify and Klaviyo, I think we take for granted like how easy it is. Like it's a 2-click integration, and then you have like,
You go into some of these other ESPs and that are enterprise level, Bronto, these, and it's just batshit complicated and whack.
yep. And you're trying to set up, custom. And so like if you're a custom app, like you can't just like double click into like an ESP and then all of a sudden like your add to cart metric is there. Like you have to sit there and be like, well, what are the different metrics that we want? What are the events? What are the event properties? And that was the first time I got to kind of like sit down and like dig into that. And I loved it. And I was like, well, this is kind of like fascinating. I love this. So I did that whole project, successfully migrate them over. And then the partner who was like, hey, like come join me, do this thing, like ad stuff. He was like, actually, I've kind of gotten enough clients now. People want email. Would you come start start an agency with me and we'll do email? And at first I was like, no, 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 no. Like I never wanted to be like an entrepreneur or a founder. That was like never
Yeah.
something. The word entrepreneur to me, even still, like I like think of like club promoters
Yeah.
in college. Like it just was like not a positive correlation where I was like, that is not.
Well, I think in college, like every club promoter thought they were an entrepreneur, right? Like they have their own event company. They're like getting party
Yes,
buses on the
exactly.
weekend.
So like that's
Yeah.
what.
That was it. It was either you were making t-shirts for the sororities and the fraternities, or you were running party buses, and
Yes.
promoting. Yeah.
So that's what entrepreneur meant to me. So I was like, I'm not starting. So like, I honestly feel like I was a little tricked. He was like, it's gonna be so chill. Like you're just gonna do email for like 3 brands. Like maybe one day we'll hire someone else. Like maybe. And I was like, oh yeah, like that sounds so chill. And then like we get this WeWork office and there's like 4 of us. And I thought it was like so like legit and cool. I remember like walking into the WeWork office and like our name is like on the door, like on a sticker. And I was like, oh yeah, like Lunar Solar, it's a real company. And then like fast forward 4 years later, it's 85 full-time employees. We're working with hundreds of clients, like bootstrap this thing. We're like, it's kicking off cash for investing in other companies. And like, I just never, he always had like, he's like more the big vision person. I'm kind of just like the operator. Like you can plug me into anything. And if you're like, hey, just like figure out how we get to this, like I can figure out how to get there. But I'm like never the like we're going to have billions of employees and they're going to do all these different things type of person. I'm just kind of like, I like to like get into it, like something that I can kind of like, once somebody else like will lay out this like bigger thing, I'm able to get in there and be like, all right, this is how we do all these different things.
Well, it sounds like he's almost like the visionary, you're the integrator that really matches, which
Exactly.
is really the toughest, which is what you need to grow a big business, but is the toughest thing to find. And there's way more visionaries out there than there are integrators, just in general.
Oh, I didn't know that, but that's interesting.
There is. That's the biggest problem that entrepreneurs have is like, at least that I've seen and I hear all the time, is that there's too many people are big vision, but don't have the proper person to help execute their vision and work on executing the vision. So yeah, it's a great skill to have. Yeah.
That makes sense because, like, again, I can't picture doing any of it like without him. Where also sometimes he has these. He's like, "Well, I'll just like go off on like, and I'll do this idea over there." I'm like, "Good luck."
Yeah.
Like, good luck getting that
Yeah.
idea, like actually functioning and executing. But yeah, so I end up joining him, doing that. So we've got the agency.
Sorry, when did you guys start Lunar Solar?
2018.
2018. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we start Lunar Solar. It starts kind of to take off. We get to about like right when the beginning of COVID is about 30 full time. And I remember that being like one of the, if I think about like the scariest moments of my career, like when I thought
Wow.
everything was over,
Yeah.
like the first like 2-3 months, like the client follow up was bad. Like nobody knew it was going to happen. I was like, are we going to lose the whole company? Like we're 30, but like, this is like a real company now. Like what's going to happen? Like we're like, do we have to do layoffs? Like what is this? And then like e-commerce just started taking off. Like everybody moved everything online. And
It was such a great 6-8 month run, 9 month run. Yeah.
we went from like 30 and I thought we were going to have to like lay everyone off and shut the company down to like 60 over. And it was just like all of a sudden I was like, how do you build remote teams? Like how do you build culture? How do you do all these things? Agencies kicking off cash. We're like, what do we do? So we like start investing in these, and the e-commerce companies are growing so fast. We're like investing in the companies that we're working with or investing in the tech we're working with. And like, that's kind of like what spun everything out. And then like, another like year or so after that, I kind of like built and stabilized my like division in the team. I tried to step in and be our COO, which felt like a natural role for me, but I just like it wasn't the right role. Like I just didn't like love it the way that I like loved like running the retention side. I think I like did fundamentally like love the retention strategy piece of it. And we had
That's funny too, because that's my like forte specialty is retention side as well. Yeah.
Yeah. We're like, I did love that. So then we had started like we started dabbling in building apps somewhere along the line where we would run into this issue where we'd be working with all these brands and they'd be like, God, if we just had an app that did this, like that would solve all these problems. Like if we could just like figure out how to do this piece. And we would like try to advise other companies and we're like, why don't we have a whole web team? Like why don't we have developers, like why don't we build apps?
Yeah.
And that kind of spun us into building apps. And then we had 2 developers that were just so incredibly talented. They were kind of like sick of just like building Shopify themes. That like, we want to build actual apps. And we had this concept for an app, and they ended up being like, we want to take this and run with it. So they did. And we ended up taking it, and it's a company now called No Commerce that we ended up selling to WeCommerce at some point last year. So like Lunar Solar kind of like funded it. We started it, and then we were able to spin it out. And that kind of like for me was all of a sudden it was like the gateway where I was like, oh,
Wow.
we can identify a problem, we can incubate it, we can ask like clients that are already in our network to be beta merchants on it,
Prototype it, bring it to market. That's cool.
spin it out, and then like that's that. And that kind of like was the first step of like, oh, this is a good idea. And I knew for a long time that I eventually wanted to build something. I thought it was just gonna be like a testing platform or what it was. I knew there would be like some type of like testing component to it, but then Shopify opens up their subscription API. There's all this noise in the subscription space, and it kind of like we were sitting there one night and I was like, I think this is it. Like I think this is the perfect like right next move for me. And that's kind of, I was like, if we can raise for it, then like we'll do it. And if we can't raise for it, like it's a sign.
Yeah.
And we talked to 3 funds, and 2 of them were like, we'll split the round and like, let's
Wow.
do it. And I was just like, all right, it's a sign, like we're doing it. And that's kind of how we got started.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, like hearing your journey And I hear people all the time that like work in tech and they're like, I just want to build tech and do something, but they don't know a market, they don't know the customer. And I always say, if you really want to build something, go start a service-based business, learn exactly what people need, what they want, how much they're going to pay for it, have existing customers, and then build some tech on it. So I think you guys are just like textbook, writing the textbook along the way for the process. That's exciting.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, it's awesome. Like you build these programs for brands for years. I spent like, 5 or 6 years like building people's subscription programs, like figuring out like, oh, you send emails here, like you do this, like you can do these different things. I'm kind of like piecing things together. I was using Klaviyo to like all my integrations were feeding into there. And then I was trying to build these like very unique customer journeys. And then I was like, what if this all just like lived in the subscription app? Then like you could do so much, it would be so much more powerful. You could test all these different things, you can do all these different things. So when I really like looked at the space, I was like, okay, like this is how people have been doing it like for years. This is how the rest of the retention suite has kind of evolved. Like these are the missing pieces. Like this should all sit together in a platform.
And I think that's awesome because as we know from just where the market sits and where it's sat, like it made some great momentum back in like 2015, 2016, early 2017. And then it just kind of flattened off with the proper roadmap. And we don't have to mention who, but we all know that there's been a lot of frustration when it comes to subscription commerce.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's, yeah, nobody's just like truly looked at it and just like really kind of innovated and brought new features to market. And it's been so cool that we were able to launch with some of that stuff. And like seeing it now, it takes a while. Like you build a platform and you like need to get the right size merchants on it. Of course, you get like small merchants first, then you get larger merchants because you want to start running like tests and seeing if stuff's actually working. Like it doesn't just like happen in 1 month. Like people are like, oh, like can you get case studies? Like, no, it takes like a brand being on your platform for like 6 months to like really know and definitively say like this is working or this that's not. And like I feel like we just recently hit that point where like the larger brands are hitting the like 6 month, 9 month mark. And I'm able to sit there and be like, oh my God, like these tests that they've run, like this is change like life changing to their businesses because like they were able to identify these different like bad performing cohorts and like do things to change it. But yeah, it's been like very exciting recently.
That's so cool. So what's on the horizon right now? Like where you guys at with the brand? You guys raised around and you got the product in market. I obviously know you guys are building the partner team, the partner program because we're a part of the partner program now. So we're really excited to get to try to onboard some of our subscription based clients into it. But like what else is on the horizon? Is it like heavy acquisition of new customers? You guys building up the sales team right now?
So we have the go-to-market team, like ready to go, and they're set up. So they've been training for quite a bit now. Kind of like they're all good now. Like they can give demos and stuff. There's a lot. You go from this transition of like founder-led sales to the go-to-market team, and that for me was like so hard to let go because you have to sit on like the calls, and they're amazing now. But there's this moment, like there's months where you have to watch them do it, and you're like, I would have done this better. And it's like, of course, you as the founder would do it better, but that's not scalable, right?
But there's not 40 of you. There's one of you. Yeah,
Right. So like you have to train all these people. So like sitting and like training and like watching and doing the mock demos and like listening to their calls and having them listen to some of my calls. So I finally feel really good about that and like trust that whole team where now they can run the sales process without me. So that's kind of where they're at now. I think for me, we go back and forth and like it's like do you want to there's like different types of feature requests because there's like feature requests that are like quality of life type of things where it's like hey like can you add another button in here so that we can easily do this, and then there's like can we add machine learning to the portal so that like we can pick the products and show the products together, and like one is really like sexy for like to go out and like sell it, and the other one is like
for sure.
once you're on the
For sure.
platform like you're going to notice all of these little things, and you have to have like this perfect balance of like you need like enough flashy to kind of go to market and like make waves and be like look we have these cool things that other people don't have because in this
The core features, yeah. But also the functionality. It's like people use the platform and it's actually easy for them to use it and you get adoption. Yeah,
100% because I think one like the sexy features are great because it gets people in the door, but the one thing that like we highlight a lot is that we have zero churn on the platform, which is like something I don't think that anyone else can say in the space, and that's because I think the way that we've balanced like new flashy features and just like quality of life things, like things that you really need to know. Like you need to know, like if the failed billing stuff, like you need to know like why people's credit cards are declining, what is the error messages, all that stuff. Where like, was that like a cool new feature that I could announce? Like, no, I couldn't make a LinkedIn post and be like, we now offer like failed billing reports.
It's not sexy, but it's the infrastructure, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So it's doing a lot of that work. So there's a balance. We've got a couple cool new features. We did just announce a few of the new machine learning features that are coming out in Q1. And then a lot of the rest of Q1 is like that little stuff that like all of our merchants who are on the platform now will start to notice, like, oh, it's so much easier. Now we can do this, like that type of stuff.
That's epic. And like, are you guys still hiring right now? Are you guys growing, or have you guys tapered off?
We are at a pretty good, so we went through this like pretty like high growth. I like to get in places where like you hire kind of all at once and then you stabilize and you let everybody kind of get in a good groove. I'm like, onboarding people is great, but like it's a huge time suck. Interviewing people, huge time suck. So I like to kind of do it like in groups and sprints and like whatever you want to call it, where we went through this phase. I'm really confident like and good with the team that we've got now. I think that we're good to kind of scale to the next level that I need us to. And then we'll probably do like another big round of hiring, maybe closer to the end of Q1, going into Q2. Of course, if we needed something like there's a couple of positions where I'm like, I could use really like a technical, like a documentation writer type of thing, where like maybe that type of role. But I have the core team is just so awesome. We're like 40 full time. So it is a big team.
Wow, that's epic.
Yeah.
And are you guys all remote? You got a mix of remote in person?
So the stay is all remote, just so scattered
Yeah.
throughout the country.
It's also just so great because you're opening up your pool for talent acquisition. Yeah.
100%. Where lunar solar, I think just we're mostly in person for that. Almost everybody's here in New York, so we've got the office here, which is cool because we have this like almost HQ where if anybody wants to come in and meet like for stay, like we've had a couple people like fly in and do different team meetings and whatnot, where we'll either do offsites in Park City or here in New York.
Very cool. And
Yeah.
how are you balancing your time right now? Are you 100% on stay or still a mix on the agency?
I would say I'm 97% on stay. Like, yeah, I'm doing maybe a little bit less. I'm doing like maybe two hours a week on the lunar solar side.
Very cool. And like, who are you guys finding is like the best performing clients on the platform? Is there a specific vertical? Is it supplements? Is it, food? I'm curious if there's one niche that's just killing it right now for you guys.
I think so. The people who are doing the best on the platform is the people who power use the platform.
For
So
sure.
I think there takes like this element of like subscription. Just everyone thinks of it as this very like set it and forget it thing, and like, hey, the platform works for that. But the people who are seeing the most out of it are power using. They're going in, they're making like they're optimizing different things, and they're spending a couple hours a month in the platform, like testing and changing things around. But in terms of like a certain like vertical where we've seen a lot of growth, I think just something that I've noticed, and I don't know if I just like hadn't noticed it before or if it's really on the up and up, is like dog food companies. That is like where I'm seeing crazy growth right now. So many new ones entering the space, a lot of growth. It feels like it's like the hot new thing now. Not that like dog food is new, like dog food's been around forever, but like it
For sure. But subscription commerce for dog food. We got an episode going live of the podcast like in the next 2 weeks. It's my buddy Nick Noman, who's the CMO at We Feed Raw. And they're a dog food brand based in the States, and it's all raw dog food. They have like a couple hundred variations of food based off of the diet that each individual dog needs. And it was wild to hear just what their acquisition structure looks like and their back end fulfillment.
yeah. So that's the one where I'm like, we just keep getting more of those brands in. Like I kind of can't believe how fast the ones we have are growing. So I'm like, okay, this is the new space.
That's awesome. And what are you most excited about for the future with Stay and what you guys are doing?
What makes me the most excited is when this is going to sound dumb, but like when I see the futures really work, like when I start to see the results of things, like when you get the case, like I was working with this like one brand, and the founders are friends. So I like hopped on their call with their success manager the other day just to be like, what's going on? And they checked in on this A/B test that had been running for a month, and it was like part of this feature that we'd built that like was completely new to market. Nobody had anything like this. It was like literally something that I'd sketched out like on a napkin one day, being like, "What if we could do this?" And it's called the Experience Engine. What it allows you to do is like run promos to your subscribers, so you can A/B test like, well, what if we offered a free gift on order number 2? How would that increase like conversion rate? Would less people skip or cancel? And like you could do upsells on different orders. So they had really high churn on the second and third orders. They ran this A/B test to see if they told people on the upcoming like order notification they were offering a free gift, how that would impact people either like hitting skip or cancel or actually getting that order. And it was like pretty nuts to just kind of like see it right out the gate. About
Wow.
1,000 people had run through it. So you had 500 and 500. And it was an 85% increase on people
Damn.
who knew they were getting a gift on the second order that had actually converted, where I was like, this is like so changing for your business. Like, this is so cool. And then like it was interesting because then on the third order, it was only like a 15% increase. And by the fourth order, it had no increase. But I was like, wow, we like identified this problem area. We were able to then like, and it wasn't like hours and hours of development. It was like like somebody who works in marketing can come in here and like set up these tests and check up on them. And I was like, wow, this is going to help so many people. So that's like the stuff like that is what I'm most excited for, is like fine tuning those tools that actually help and like make a huge difference. Cause I feel like there's a lot of features out there that like, where you're like, oh, does that actually make a difference? And no one ever knows. But yeah, so that's what I'm most excited about, is building more stuff like that.
So cool. And where do you see yourself with Stay and Lunar Solar like in another 3 to 5 years? Do you have like a bigger picture idea on like what you want these businesses to look like then?
I think anything could happen. I'm like always very open-minded. I try not to be like, "Oh, I want this to like hit X like revenue number and like blah blah blah." Like I'm kind of like, as long as like I'm super happy and like we've got like good reputation in the space and we're doing like what we're supposed to be doing, like I'm pretty fulfilled. I obviously would like love to see them both grow a ton. I think that Lunar Solar, I would love to see, in the next 3 years grow quite a bit. We're at like maybe 75 full time. I think I'd love to see that. I don't know if I ever want to see it be more than 200 people, to be quite honest. I think it
Yeah,
would be like awesome if it like settled in around 150, so like doubled.
sure.
I'm sure if you talk to Pearson, he'd be like, it's gonna 10x. But then I think that would be like my ideal sweet spot for Lunar Solar. For Stay, I want to grow the team as lean as I can. Obviously, I want to be like, oh, the ARR is going to be 100x what it is right now. But where I think it could go, I think it's like very reasonable that we'll be on like the standard triple, triple, double, double kind of like path. That's like obviously what all of our, like everybody says, like that's like the golden way through with tech, and we're on that path now. And so I'd love to just kind of continue that.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So what else do you like to do besides snowboard for fun? Like what do you do in your free time?
I do snowboard a lot. So a lot of my free time is spent figuring out like different snowboard trips and getting that stuff together. I mountain bike a lot when it's not snowboard season. So I do a lot of mountain biking out in Utah, and then when I'm in New York, it's a lot of like your typical New York stuff, like finding the best new restaurant, like where is like the food that I've never tried before that's like awesome and inspiring, and like good cocktails. I'm a big bourbon drinker. So any type of like, I can be like pulled into any, if you like lure me in with like some new hot bourbon, I'm like, I'm there.
That's cool. What's your favorite mountain?
To ski, to snowboard. I think it depends on like what we're doing. I think in terms of like overall riding, probably snowbird. Um, I think like their terrain is just like the most fun. When it's like they've gotten a decent amount of snow. It's also like where we go heli skiing. So that like where we go heli skiing, I've literally done twice in my entire life. But like where we did that, so like
Hey, you're doing it. You've done it twice. It's now where we go heli skiing. Yeah.
it's where we go, like pinkies up. Company better start doing a lot more if
Yeah.
that's going to be my new thing. But yeah, so I would say snowbird for the riding. Just I like their terrain the best. I loved so like I haven't been able to go the last few years, but I used to spend every summer in Oregon,
Oh, cool.
riding up at Mount Hood, and like sunny park laps. Like I think will always like hold a special place in my heart. So that is probably like if I had to pick like good winter like snow like riding is going to be snowbird, and like sunny park laps is going to be up in Mount Hood.
That's awesome. How far is the flight from New York to Park City?
4.5.
4.5?
Yeah, there's a there's good night flights where like there's a 5:30 flight that I take out like on like a Thursday or Friday night. And then I get there like in time. It's like I don't have to like sleep on the plane or anything, but like I figured out the flights that I need to take to like make it very efficient.
Makes it worth it and it's comfortable. Yeah.
Exactly.
I hear you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, where, thank you so much for coming on today, Gina. Is there any place where people can get in touch with you? Like, are you active on any socials? If they're interested in signing up and learning more about Stay, is there a place where they can connect?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very active on Twitter. I'm on there almost every day. I would say I tweet at least once a day. Sometimes more.
The ecom Twitterverse is just where it's at. Yeah.
Yeah, it's where it's at. I tweeted something yesterday about like putting bronzer on, and it took off. Like I thought it was gonna be one of those tweets that got none, and I was like, wow, the men of ecom Twitter were passionate about this one. Um,
It's so wild how ecom Twitter has become where if you're not on it, you're not doing it. You're just
do you even exist?
yeah, it's wild. It's
Yeah,
wild. I don't know any more passionate audience on Twitter right now than ecom Twitter for sure.
I was not on it for the first 3 years of my marketing career. I like just got on a year and a half ago, and it's crazy. Like I have friends, like I've got like like people I've met in real life that are like now my actual friend. Like it's nuts. It's yeah. So I'm on Twitter. That's a good place to find me, and then also just Stay.ai or Stay.ai is a new website name, which I'm very excited we were able to grab that domain. But yeah, you can hop on there, fill out a form, and the team will get back to you and get you on a demo.
Great. That's sick. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. Like I said, this has been great. And I will put the links to Stay.ai and your Twitter and everything in the show notes. So just people can touch base with you on it. But thanks, Gina. I really appreciate you coming on, getting to learn more about your history.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks.